I'm Josh again, and this is my second oral presentation about my creative process when it comes to creating digital pieces in Photoshop. For story communication, I usually start with kind of some loose sketching to get my arms warmed up and kind of get my brain warmed up and get in the mode of working. And this usually means creating like a really big canvas that's like 2000 by 2000. Something to do a lot of small sketches in, make some notes in the margins, and kind of explore a little bit, get the exploratory phase out of the way. Once I have an idea of what I want to focus on in my painting, I'm able to start thumbnailing my idea, make probably usually another document, and take pieces of the old document and just kind of put them into a small, tiny frame, get the composition right, or at least where I want to get it to, work on the big shapes, do some color studies, and then once I get that done, that kind of gives me a rough direction of where I want to work in, and I usually take that and blow it up into a bigger canvas. This part of the process isn't it can be fun sometimes. Sometimes it can be really frustrating, like doing composition stuff, because the foundation is what's the rest of the painting is going to be based off of. So getting that right is just kind of, it can be very stressful. And once I have the foundations laid, though, the work becomes immensely easier because I have an idea of where I want to go, and a lot of it is focusing on how to render stuff instead of placement of things. Working on the details and just slowly working from large to small until I have a product that I'm really happy about. I'm also less worried about making changes because I have a big idea. I have the foundations laid, and if I do make changes, they're going to be pretty minimum at this point. Logistically, without deadlines, I kind of put things off to the last minute, depending on how important I view them or how invested I am in them. If I'm working on like a very long semester-like project, I usually break it down into smaller pieces. So like every week I'll have like a milestone that I try to hit, and that usually keeps my head above water and guarantees that things will get done on time. Doing this also kind of forces me to work, and getting me to start working is probably the hardest part of my process, just because I kind of think things and I like to plan things out. But once I start working on it, I get a little more invested, and that kind of builds momentum, and then I eventually work on things longer than I expected to. So that's pretty good. More important to me than deadlines, again, is kind of the subject matter. So if things aren't if they aren't based around a topic that I'm extremely interested in, it's a lot harder to start things and a lot easier to procrastinate. If I'm working on like something like a fantasy illustration, I'm usually dive in pretty head first because that's just something that's like I'm very passionate about, and it's very easy for me to get excited about. If it's based around a subject that I don't really have as much knowledge in, or I'm like very kind of iffy about, I at least will start studying that subject. I may not start the project, but I will study the subject itself and learn more about it and push it off until I can. But I will eventually start it with some knowledge, some like foundational knowledge. More important to me on the technical side, at least for working out my problems, is that I'll turn to my sketchbook or a blank document and work on notes when I run into trouble. If I can't figure out why something doesn't work, I will turn to the internet for reference and guidance. So things like Pinterest is really good for finding objects, vases, like armor, things that I can't kind of just see around me or like get a rendering of. I can take like some photos that someone else took and do just kind of like a rough sketch, like an educational sketch, and figure out like how like flex off of metal, or like how the small detail pops out, or what's aesthetically pleasing about something. And then if I am also having trouble like with Photoshop or using a brush or like rendering something, and can't figure out how to do it, YouTube has a lot of good speed painting videos where I can watch other artists kind of go through their work, and if they're doing something similar like rendering hair, I can watch them do a piece of that and kind of gain some insight from that. Not only is that fun for me to watch, but I usually learn something new every time I do that, and I usually can incorporate it to my pieces to make them better than they were going to be originally if I hadn't used reference. And then working with reference is probably something that makes just my art overall more believable, and the small details that I didn't think about before really are something that kind of get noticed by other people, and they get pointed out, and they make the picture itself just more aesthetically pleasing. Overall, there's a lot more planning and problem solving, actual easy work when I do this. But when the stars align, I can sometimes be able to get started with a project and complete it before the deadline with minimum bumps. Some of my best works have come from doing things that are kind of on short deadlines and not just kind of self-imposed short deadlines, but like things that I like have a week to work on. Because I'm limited by time, I can't push it off, um, and it kind of gives me some time to just like kind of go different avenues or experiment with different avenues that make it work quicker. Um, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I love digital art in general so much too, is that there's always new challenge to overcome, or there's always something, some other way to kind of get around traditional mediums. So you can move stuff around. You can like use different tools to bring out different effects, like dodge tools, or like the layer levels, like we were doing earlier in class. And I always get to learn something new whenever I start a project that's digital. So it's never a dull moment. So yeah, that's part of my creative process. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.